Right, good evening all. Basically, I'm going to sort of talk about ekphrastic writing. It is a very fun way to write, where one would either write poetry or in response to artwork, or it could be any form of writing. It could even be a short story that has been influenced by directly looking at a piece of artwork, which it could be any form of art, whether it's installation or if it's sculpture, etc., etc. But I was introduced to Harris Burdick about, I don't know, maybe about 8 years ago, in my writing, in a writing group that I attend. And it's a fascinating and interesting sort of story behind Harris Burdick. Basically, he did 14 pieces of artwork with a title and a wee caption. Basically, first of all, I'll read you a small paragraph from this introduction. 30 years ago, a man called at Peter Wender's office, introducing himself as Harris Burdick. Mr. Burdick explained that he had written 14 stories and had drawn many pictures for each one. He brought with him just one drawing from each story to see if Wenders liked his work. Peter Wenders was fascinated by the drawings. He told Burdick he would like to read the stories that went with them as soon as possible. The artist agreed to bring the stories the next morning. He left the 14 drawings with Wenders, but he did not return the next day, or the day after that. Harris Burdick was never heard from again. Over the years, Wenders tried to find out who Burdick was and what had happened to him, but he discovered nothing. To this day, Harris Burdick remains a complete mystery. So he was a true guy who did these pictures, and they are excellent. I mean, they've influenced me a lot, and I'm sure they've influenced a lot of people throughout the years, basically. He's obviously, I'll show you a couple for examples here. There's one here of 2 children, and the title is called A Strange Day in July, and the caption reads, "He threw with all his might, but the third stone came skipping back." So obviously, why it was introduced into our group, these pictures, well, they're very good prompts for creative writers to try and come up with a story based on the picture and the caption. And obviously the 2 children are skimming stones at the ocean, you know, finding flat stones, and you can count the skips. But it says the third stone came skipping back. So it is a good idea. I am going to challenge myself and write something on every picture, which are 14, of course. And I'll show you some other ones here. Some of them are brilliant. This one is brilliant. This one captured my attention the most. The title is Archie Smith, Boy Wonder, and the caption is, "A tiny voice asked, 'Is he the one?'" And of course, that really struck a chord with me, so much in accordance to my condition of paranoid psychosis. And you can see here a picture, and there's obviously, presumably that's Archie sleeping away in his bed. But these 2 strange glowing lights, and there's even some outside, a nice sash window and a baseball bat and a yo-yo here. But it certainly sparks off your imagination. And I wrote something, I'll read it out soon. I actually wrote something for that one, actually. A short piece. Let me see. Yeah, this is a good one as well. I like this one. You can see here the title of the picture is called The Seven Chairs, and the caption states, "The fifth one ended up in France." And of course this must be some kind of cathedral, presumably in France, and that's probably the seventh chair hovering above, and these are two religious gentlemen here. So it is a very, very good book. I mean, it's probably influenced a lot of writers over time, but it is very fun to do, and a lot of creative writing groups use Harris Burdick stuff, and if you haven't heard of him, I would recommend buying this wee book of all of them, which I think is only either $6.99 or $7.99 on Amazon, but it's well worth a buy. So ekphrastic poetry or writing is a very relaxed and fun way to do writing. And anyway, I'm going to read my piece which was based on Archie Smith, Boy Wonder, which the caption was, "A tiny voice asked, is he the one?" It was a warm summer's night, and the sash window was open. The blinds were rolled up for all the sky to flood in. A gentle breeze flows through and around the room while Archie lay sleeping. The crickets stridulated their soft chirping sound as a fine harpist resonated a lullaby in the sensitive night air. Stars twinkled their calling signal from afar, lancing through the deepest blue, sparkling dreams of tranquility. The air was sweet with the gentle drifts of honeysuckle, such a beautiful environment to be asleep in. There was no telling how long Archie was asleep, but from the beauty of stillness a glowing light grew as something approached Archie's window from outside. Effortlessly, two glowing balls of light, the size of a tennis ball, glided through the window and into Archie's room. Not a sound, nor a hum or murmur, as the two lights hovered until they rested still over Archie's bed. Like two giant eyes looking upon the boy Wonder, whispering and muttering in a soft dispute between them both. One of the shining lights, with its soft tiny voice, asked, "Is he the one?" Archie moaned and groaned, and he turned onto his back. His dark brown hair was in all shapes, with his fringe that fell over his forehead. He felt the glowing light upon his face, which radiated through his closed eyelids, creating a warm light colour. Archie's arm moved and rested over his eyes to shield himself from the light as he lay sleeping. Suddenly, he quickly sat up straight in his bed and gasped by sucking in a deep breath, his heart pounding with the realization of these two glowing lights directly in front of him, his eyes wide in the glare, reflecting the light. Then the two lights quickly flung forward, filling the boy's eyes. In response, his body jolted, his taut torso shot forward, tense with his arms like two stiff bars, as if he was being electrocuted. Archie's eyes now shone like two bright torches. He shook his head to try and get rid of the buzzing feeling in his eyes that crawled with pins and needles. He got out of his bed and stumbled to the window. "This cannot be happening!" His hand knocked down a yo-yo from the windowsill and onto the floor. Bang! His feet kicked over the baseball bat that lay against the windowsill. Thud! Archie's head continued to buzz as his hands found a resting place on the windowsill. His weight leant on them as he gazed out from the window. Eyes like two big searchlights, flooding and flashing a path of light as it passed the trees. Birds fluttered in the branches as the beam flickered by, flashing on and off as Archie blinked. Archie was breathing quickly with sighs in between, and sweat running down from his head. Suddenly, he shouted at the top of his voice, "I am the one! Obey me!" His voice travelled across town and field as if the summoning's bells that pealed. Symbolically, like the star-filled sky that can be seen the same no matter where one stood in the country. His voice went through many ears, and Archie yielded many minds. Abruptly, his mum flung his bedroom door open. Thud. "Are you okay, dear? I heard you screaming." Archie shot up like a springboard as he sat with his back straight in bed. His t-shirt was soaking wet with sweat. His forehead was dripping, and he was breathing heavy. He looked around the room, then rested his eyes upon his mum, who stood at the door with her eyebrows scrunched and arms folded. Archie finally took a deep breath and let out a big sigh and said, "I'm okay, Mum. I just had a nightmare." His mum gave a subtle smile and nodded. "Okay, just so you know, I will be right next door if you need anything." Archie replied, "Okay, Mum, thanks." He then turned back onto his side whilst his mum closed over the door, keeping it slightly ajar. "Good night," she whispered. Well, that's the piece anyway. I enjoyed writing it. It was only a very small piece in my response, echoing a bit of obviously sci-fi in there as well and stuff. But you should definitely try some ekphrastic writing. Choose one of your favourite artists, whether it's Monet or you could